Hi, and welcome to Patagonia, but this time, Patagonia in Argentina. Today, we're going to visit the southernmost tip of the American continent, which is Ushuaia. And this is also known as the city of the end of the world. This city is going to be very particular because it's the only city in Argentina that will combine the sea, the mountains, forests, and lakes. And furthermore, its name is going to be Bay Looking to the West in the Jagan language. But you're going to see that there are two different ways of saying the city. The first one, and it's how you would read it in English, it's Ushuaia. But how locals will say it is without the H, so it would sound Usuaia. And when I visited, I heard both versions to be honest. But the proper one said by the locals is the one without the H, Usuaia, because in Spanish, technically we don't pronounce the H when it comes after an S. So this is something that we took from English, and that's why you're going to see some people saying it like that. But the official way is going to be Ushuaia, and that's why I'm going to be talking about this city as Ushuaia. So anyway, moving on from pronunciation, this is going to be a very unique city because it's in the south of Isla Grande de Tierra del Fuego, which means the great island of the land of fire, and it's going to be surrounded by the Fuegian Andes, the Beagle Channel, and nature that is going to change a lot. Something important is that this city will always be relatively cold, even in the summer, where the average temperature that you're going to find will be around 10 degrees Celsius or 50 Fahrenheit. It is also going to be a city that has a lot of rain, but something interesting is that in the peak of the summer, it's going to have a lot of hours of sunshine, reaching almost 17 and a half hours of sun or only around 6 hours of darkness. Its location is going to be so extreme that there is no other permanent city further south on the entire planet, and that's why you're going to see everywhere in the city the sign that says Fin del Mundo, which means end of the world. And of course, this has fueled the city's tourism a lot. The history of Ushuaia is going to be as particular as its geography because in its origins, this corner of the world was only inhabited by the indigenous people, which were nomadic sailors who survived these icy temperatures almost without clothes, and they were traveling in canoes along the canal. But later, in the 19th century, the British settlers and Anglican missionaries arrived, and this led to the establishment of a prison, and with it, the formal founding of the city. And yes, this is still one of the city's distinctive features because for decades, all of the high risk prisoners were sent here to populate this remote land in order to reaffirm as well the sovereignty of the country. In fact, many of the first constructions, including the famous train line that's still preserved, were made by the inmates themselves. Today, Ushuaia is going to be a very modern city, and it's extremely popular because it's also the gateway to Antarctica. And many polar cruises are going to be departing from here, so if you're planning on visiting Antarctica, then most likely you're going to come to Ushuaia. When I went to Ushuaia, I only stayed 2 nights because this is a very small city that can be explored very easily and mostly on foot. I studied at a hotel that had incredible views and it was called Hotel Altos Ushuaia, and it's going to be located in an area that is going to be close to the ski slopes for all of those who are traveling in the winter and want to slide down these mountains. But the hotel, even though it looks very far on a map, it's going to be actually a very close drive away from the center. And something very useful is that in this very remote city, you're going to find Uber, so it was very easy to get around. I dedicated my entire first day to exploring the city on foot, and for that, I arrived to the tourist center, specifically the Ushuaia Tourism Secretary, because over here they have a nice stamp that says end of the world, and you can put it in your passport in case you want to do that, which who wouldn't because it's the end of the world. In this area, there are going to also be famous signs such as the End of the World or Fin del Mundo sign, where all of the tourists are taking their photos. And from here, you can walk west to the bay, where you're going to have beautiful views, and it's going to be one of the routes where you can take good photos of the city. Eventually, you're going to reach a very popular square called Plaza Islas Malvinas, which is going to be in front of another important sign, which is the Ushuaia sign. And well, this square is going to open up the space to talk about something that you will also see a lot in this region, and it's a sign that says Las Malvinas son Argentinas, which translates to the Malvinas Islands are from Argentina. So, for all of those who don't know about these islands, basically they are part of a territorial dispute between Argentina and the UK. And in this conflict, Argentina says that it took the islands from Spain after their independence in 1816, but in 1833, the UK was occupying them and administering them ever since. Tension reached its peak in 1982 when the Argentine military dictatorship ordered the occupation of the islands, which triggered a 74-day war against the UK that ended in Argentina's defeat, the death of 649 Argentine and 255 British soldiers, and the weakening of the military regime in Argentina. Since then, the UK has maintained control of the territory and supports the right of the islanders to decide their future, who, in a 2013 referendum, ratified their desire to remain British. However, Argentina, and especially this region, is going to continue to claim the sovereignty in international forums such as the UN, which is going to kind of keep this conflict alive at a diplomatic level only because there are not going to be any armed confrontations, or there haven't been any since the one I mentioned. So this is going to be something that you'll see around, and when you're visiting, ask the locals to see what they think. This is going to be something that some people will differ in their opinions, but others will tell you that it's already gone and those islands are going to be British. After spending some time on the square, the other thing that I would recommend doing in the city is visiting two of the most popular museums. The first one is the Fuegian History Thematic Gallery. And over there, you're going to find like 100 plus life-size figures that are going to tell you scene by scene the history of this region. And so they're going to pass from the Yamanas, which are the indigenous people, to missionaries, to the first explorers, to Darwin's visit, and the famous prison. Everything will be here. So if you want to learn about history, highly recommended. The second one is going to be the Prison Museum, which functioned as a prison from 1904 to 1947. And over here, you can see the original cells, read about the most dangerous criminals in the Argentine history, and understand how life was like at the end of the world when you had strict surveillance. On my second day, I did one of the most emblematic experiences that you should do in Ushuaia, and is riding the famous end of the world train. Beyond its name, this is going to have an enormous historical and symbolical value because originally this train was used by prisoners from the penitentiary to go cut the firewood in the forest. Today, it's transformed into a tourist attraction, and it will follow the same original route, but of course now it's very comfortable, it has heating, it has panoramic windows, and this journey is going to last for less than an hour. You're going to get one pause where you can walk a little bit to see one nice and small fall, and then you're going to be traveling through forest, rivers, mountains, and you'll hear an audio guide that will tell you in the language that you choose the history of the train and this penitentiary. It's going to be a good way to connect with the city's past while you're enjoying this spectacular landscape, and the train is going to depart a very few kilometers away from the city center, but it's going to end in the access to Tierra del Fuego National Park. And this is exactly another of the great must-sees. This national park is going to be the only national park that will combine sea, forest, and mountains. So it's a very cool place that combines like a natural paradise with a lot of hectares, and only a small portion is open for tourism. Inside this park, I took a tour to explore some marked trails, and my tour was only a half a day, so I only did very short trails, but the first one I did was one that's called La Pataya Bay Trail, which is the final point of the National Route 3. Basically, they told me that this national route, or like highway, it's going to connect the entire country, and there are going to be people who take motorcycle trips from Buenos Aires all the way here, and you can take a photo in this place that has a sign, "Here ends Highway 3, end of the world," which is one of the most photographed places in Ushuaia. Another short trail that I took is the Beaver Trail, And over here, you're going to see how beavers became a huge problem in this park because these animals that are originally from North America basically arrived here, and having no predators to hunt them, they began to reproduce rapidly. And they started cutting down many trees in order to create their dams. And although this sounds like cute, beavers became a very destructive animal in this environment, and you're going to see that once you enter and you see all of the forest with very low trees and the water getting closer and choppy due to all of these dams. So you're going to see the huge problem that this animal has been in this environment. And even though I wasn't lucky enough to watch one of the beavers building these dams, my travel guide said that there were many tourists that could see them because they go out in the middle of the day and they are creating these dams. Afterwards, from here, I also went to another place that was called Ensenada Bay, and over here is where the end of the world post office is going to be located. We did a very short circular walk among the beach and through the forest, seeing the views of Isla Redonda and the Chilean coast on the other side of the Beagle Channel. Other small stops in my tour included viewpoints of Lake Asigami, Laguna Verde, Obando River, and the Cormorant Archipelago. And then I enjoyed a very delicious lunch, so I spent the entire morning in Tierra del Fuego National Park. Afterwards, I returned to the city because I was going to do in the afternoon another important thing that you shouldn't miss when you go, and it's sailing the Beagle Channel. You'll see that there are several tours that will depart from the port of Ushuaia, but one of the most popular and recommended ones is going to be the 3-hour navigation that will cover the main points of the channel. This tour was one of my favorite things in Ushuaia because you'll get incredible views of the bay, the mountains, the city, and even the Marshall Glacier if you find it in a clear day. This channel is going to be the natural border between Argentina and Chile, and you're going to be able to see both countries on each side of the channel. The 3 highlights of this trip are going to be, first, seeing all of the Patagonian animals that are going to be typical of this area. But in order to explain them better, I'm going to play you the recording of my guide, Felipe, and I'm going to show you images of these animals so you can see them.
Visitar colonias de cormoranes, que son estas aves que podemos ver acá. Son aves acuáticas de cuello largo que son gregarias. Esto quiere decir que siempre viven en grupos. Pueden bucear hasta los 80 metros de profundidad, que es búsqueda de alimento. Son excelentes buceadores cuando tienen hambre, pero no tienen un plumaje completamente impermeable. Así que cuando salen a la superficie, tienen sus alas como los cóndores, que empiezan a aletear para secarse con el viento o con el sol. En el canal tenemos 2 especies. Acá tenemos al cormorán imperial, que tiene la garganta blanca y una cresta amarilla arriba del pico. Y acá tenemos al cormorán roquero. A este lo llamamos así porque vive y nidifica en los acantilados. El cuello es negro y alrededor de los hombros no tiene plumas, pero tiene una piel bien naranja, muy llamativa. Así que dependiendo del color, blanco con negro, diferenciamos al imperial del roquero. También los diferenciamos de los pingüinos porque son aves muy parecidas, ¿es cierto? Comparten los mismos colores, el mismo tamaño y en tierra caminan de forma similar, pero los cormoranes tienen el cuello largo y pueden volar. Esa es la clave. Si vemos algún pingüino volando, en realidad es un cormorán y es la mejor manera de diferenciarlo del pingüino patagónico que podemos ver acá. Vamos a ver 2 gaviotas que habrán visto en la costanera de Ushuaia probablemente. Esta es la gaviota cocinera, blanca con alas negras, y es más grande que la gaviota gris que podemos ver acá. Son muy importantes para todo el ecosistema del canal porque son carroñeras. Todos los restos de cormoranes, globos marinos de otros animales los aprovechan como alimentos, así que limpian todas las hijas que vamos a visitar para que los animales puedan vivir ahí y procrear. Y la especie emblemática que tenemos por excelencia es el lobo marino de un pelo. Los conocemos así porque solo tienen una capa de pelaje. Se distribuyen por las costas de América del Sur, desde Perú y el sur de Brasil hasta Tierra del Fuego, y el macho y la hembra son distintos físicamente. Los machos son más grandes y más oscuros, pueden pesar hasta 350 kilos y tienen melenas y cubren sus cabezas. Por eso también los conocemos como leones parís. Mientras que las hembras son más pequeñas y más claras, Pueden pesar 150 kilos y no tienen las pelenas que los machos sí tienen.
The second highlight is going to be visiting the end of the world lighthouse, which is going to be, again, one of the most typical postcard photos of Ushuaia. And again, I'm going to let Felipe explain all of the peculiarities of this lighthouse.
Fue construido en 1919 y empezó a funcionar al año siguiente. Hace más de un siglo que el faro ayuda a las embarcaciones a navegar esta parte del canal que tiene muchas islas, como podemos ver, de una manera más segura. La torre tiene 11 metros de altura, 3 metros de diámetro. En la parte más alta tiene un panel solar y una linterna que se activa automáticamente durante el atardecer, emitiendo una luz blanca cada 5 segundos, pero durante el día sigue siendo funcional gracias a sus colores. Rojo, blanco, rojo en esa distribución es un código náutico que nos indica peligro hacia el oeste, hacia aquella cordillera que vemos al fondo que tiene varios glaciares, porque en esta zona nosotros tenemos islas, bajas profundidades y campos de algas. Así que el faro que visitamos no es solamente un atractivo para el turismo, sino que es fundamental para todas las navegaciones. Si bien su nombre original es Les Éclaireurs, muchos lo conocemos como el faro del fin del mundo también. Por un lado, por toda la promoción turística que tenemos en la ciudad. Ushuaia es conocida como la ciudad del fin del mundo, así que tenemos varios atractivos que llevan ese nombre también. Y el más conocido es el tren del fin del mundo, que es probable que lo visiten cuando vayan al Parque Nacional. Pero por otro lado, muchos lo confunden con el faro descrito en esta novela que podemos ver acá, que se llama El faro del fin del mundo, que fue escrita por Julio Verne, un novelista francés. Como podemos ver, el faro Les Éclaireurs está en la portada, pero este libro se publicó en 1905. El faro que visitamos se construyó 14 años después. Ni siquiera existía cuando este libro fue publicado.
And the last highlight is going to be stopping briefly at Bridges Islands, where you can disembark for a short walk and you're going to see this beautiful landscape and learn a lot more about the indigenous culture, the first people over there, and you'll find a lot of nature that only belongs to this Patagonian region, which is going to be very, very cool. Upon returning to the city, I'm going to recommend trying the city's famous seafood because this is going to be a very popular culinary tradition. There are going to be two popular dishes. The first one is the black hake, which is a deep sea fish from the Southern Ocean, meaning it can only be fresh in this area. And it has a very soft texture and mild flavor that I highly recommend. I ate this a lot. Probably it was the thing I ate the most when I was in Ushuaia. The second popular dish is going to be the centolla, which I already mentioned in my Chilean episode. This is like a giant crab, and it's one of the great protagonists of the Fuegian cuisine because this is a very rare dish. And although this dish can be more expensive, it is going to be super exquisite. I didn't try an entire centolla, but what you can do is most of the times just order a dish that has centolla, and that way it's going to also be cheaper in case you don't want to have the entire animal for yourself. The two restaurants that I visited for trying seafood were El Viejo Marino and La Casa de los Mariscos, and I found this too thanks to their excellent reviews on Google Maps, and the truth is I like them a lot, so I recommend them. There was a queue for both though, so you should arrive with some extra time expecting to find some queue at the entry. Another restaurant that's also very popular, it's one that's called La Taberna del Viejo Lobo. And this one is going to be a little bit more international in the sense that they're going to sell all kinds of food. And although their food isn't really the best you'll eat, it's going to be like average food. I think it's worth visiting for the whole concept of the restaurant because it's going to be aligning with the Ushuaia prison. And you can see the garden, they have cool decoration, they have like a tourist shop, so it's going to be a cool place to visit. And well, that's what I did when I went for 2 days in Ushuaia. If you stayed for more days, you could do extra things like visiting the Marshall Glacier that's located just 7 kilometers away from the center of Ushuaia, and the hike can be done in around 2 to 3 hours. You could also go to Lago Escondido or Lago Fagnano, which are going to be a little bit further north, like 60 kilometers, crossing the Andes Mountains through Paso Garibaldi. And this is going to be another popular tour. or you can go to another island which is called Martillo Island, but is known as the Penguin Park because during the summer, thousands of Magallaниc penguins and some Jintus are going to arrive to this island to nest. The most impressive thing is that on some tours, if the conditions allow, you can walk among the penguins. And all of those things are some of the things I missed out on. So if you can stay more days or you can do them, tell me in the comments if you like them and if you have any tips for visiting them. Share this episode with someone else you want to travel to the end of the world with. And if you can, give me a review and stay tuned because this is going to help me tremendously to keep giving you some travel tips. Next week, we're going to keep exploring the rest of the Patagonia in Argentina. So I'll see you next week. Enjoy your trip. Hi, and welcome to Patagonia, but this time, Patagonia in Argentina. Today, we're going to visit the southernmost tip of the American continent, which is Ushuaia. And this is also known as the city of the end of the world. This city is going to be very particular because it's the only city in Argentina that will combine the sea, the mountains, forests, and lakes. And furthermore, its name is going to be Bay Looking to the West in the Jagan language. But you're going to see that there are two different ways of saying the city. The first one, and it's how you would read it in English, it's Ushuaia. But how locals will say it is without the H, so it would sound Usuaia. And when I visited, I heard both versions to be honest. But the proper one said by the locals is the one without the H, Usuaia, because in Spanish, technically we don't pronounce the H when it comes after an S. So this is something that we took from English, and that's why you're going to see some people saying it like that. But the official way is going to be Ushuaia, and that's why I'm going to be talking about this city as Ushuaia.